welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. Today I am actually doing a small recommendation video, and as you might have guessed, I am clearly not native from England. English is not my first language. I actually grew up in Italy, and I was always a reader though, even when I was in Italy. I've read all my life, and I read amazing books when I was back in Italy. And of course, in Italy, we study a lot about literature as well. We have in school all the classics that are very different from what you study here in England, for example. So I had a basic, I'd say, knowledge of Italian literature, and I have read many fiction when I was in Italy, not as much non-fiction. I guess definitely non-fiction is something that I grew into more in my adulthood, so I didn't read much non-fiction when I was back in Italy. So I thought it would be nice for me to just recommend you some Italian authors of translated fiction that you might get your hands on and then you might enjoy. These are all books that I've read many years ago, apart from one that actually I found out when I was already living in England, but I read in Italian. And there are not many of them. Unfortunately, Italian fiction is not being translated that much, apart from the very basic classics. However, there are a few, and I hope that you might take even one title out of this recommendation video and you might enjoy it. So let me start with the classics. I cannot not say The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri. This is a book. It's actually 3 books combined in one. And that's something that people sometimes get wrong. Basically, the Divine Comedy is divided in Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, so Hell, Purgatory, and Heaven. But it's a one book. It's one Divine Comedy, so it's usually divided by publishers sometimes, but it's technically one book only. And I've read all of it in Italian many years ago. I absolutely loved it. I definitely have to say that Hell, Inferno is definitely the best part. It's the most entertaining one, while Purgatorio and Paradiso, so Purgatory and Heaven, it gets a bit more dense to read through, but it's the Divine Comedy. That's actually what sparked a huge revolution in Italian literature. And so Dante Alighieri is a bit considered like the father of Italian literature, among a couple of others authors, among which another one that I really enjoyed when I read was Boccaccio by Decameron. And again, this is a collection of short stories. It's a very lengthy collection of short stories. Both of them I really enjoyed. Both I definitely suggest, but you have to either enjoy reading prose or enjoy reading classics. I'd not suggest to read these, especially because I don't know how the translation holds. If you are not into classics, you don't like reading in prose, because probably it's gonna be kind of boring. But if you do, definitely those 2 picks are at the top of the list. Another author that I absolutely loved, this is the author that started and sparked my love for thriller and crime, is Giorgio Faletti. And Giorgio Faletti, I guess a few of his books have been translated, but that I am 100% sure, because I have actually seen copies of, is I Kill. This is a very lengthy crime thriller novel, and the twist in this, I've read it ages ago, but I read this beast in like one day. I couldn't put it down, and I absolutely love the twist. Now, I don't know, nowadays I read a lot of thrillers, if I'd be surprised with the twist as much as I would be back then. So maybe I suggest that if you are very much into the genre, this might be not groundbreaking. However, the writing is stellar. Hopefully it's translated well. But if you're not much into thriller and you want to give an amazing writer a try, I definitely suggest I Kill is where I started with thrillers, and it got me hooked after that. So now more into serious, and actually it's technically non-fiction actually. They're probably one of the very few non-fiction books that I've read when I was still back in Italy is Gomorrah by Roberto Saviano. Roberto Saviano is actually guy, well, he's a real guy, of course. He's a real guy who had a lot of experience with the mafia in Italy, and Gomorrah is the story of, well, the mafia. Mafia in Italy is very complex, and I'm by no means an expert of how it works, but there are different kind of mafia according to where you live, a kind of a region you live in. So he talks about his experience, and Roberto Saviano, to these days, he has to kind of be anonymous and no one knows where he lives, and I think he's got guards or people that bodyguards, something like the sort, because the mafia has put a bounty on his head. That's the last time I heard, like it was many years ago, but basically there's a bounty on his head because he kind of betrayed the mafia and then published books and made a lot of speeches and kind of to make people aware of the situation in Italy. Yes, we still have the mafia. Yes, it's not gonna be the same as it was in the 50s. It's different, but it doesn't mean that's gone. And Gomorrah and Roberto Saviano is the guy who actually, you know, went to the media and to the public and just said, this is what's going on behind the curtains. This is what, you know, you just think of mafia about what you see in the movies and all of that. It's actually very real, and that's how it works. So that's a very interesting book if you're interested in the topic. I mean, I respect the guy because it takes a lot of courage to do what he did. I mean, living your life constantly watching over your shoulders, thinking that someone is out getting you, it might be terribly scary. To these days, he's still going around and spreading the word and making people aware of the situation. It's definitely worth supporting him. He wrote also other books, but I'm not sure if they have been translated, and the only one I've actually read is Gomorrah. So the next one is actually an author that has multiple works by him that have been translated, and this is Nicola Maniti, and this is I'm Not Scared. This is the only one I've actually read and watched the movie of, and this is the story of this boy that in 1978 is living in a southern city in Italy, and he finds out one day that his father, with other people that he knows in this small city, has kidnapped a boy of a wealthy family from the north of Italy. And it's the story of this boy, very young, that has to realize what his father is doing. And he also, if I'm not mistaken, I've read this ages ago, but he befriends this boy that they had kidnapped, and the story goes from there. I have watched this ages ago, and I remember that I was particularly not scared by the movie, but I found that very unsettling. I was very young back then, but it has received amazing prizes from the Italian press, and if I'm not mistaken, I've read that even the English press has received this well, and it's definitely a story that it's more dark, like kind of a bit like Gomorrah. It's like a bit heavier topics, but it's definitely worth a try if you like the genre. Then I have for you to recommend the Solitude of Prime Numbers by Paolo Giordano. This is more literature fiction, and this is about these two children that have grown up feeling like misfits, and they had a very traumatic past, both of them, and then they formed this friendship, and in each other they found this company that has been missed all their life. And then for work reasons, if I remember correctly, they have to separate, so one of them moves away, and they meet after many years, and you kind of follow them meeting each other, and again what happened to their bond and how the story develops from there. And there is also a movie of this which I've not watched actually. I'll probably try to watch it very soon because it's been ages since I read the book, but it's another one that's very famous. So again, all of these books I'm mentioning are not gonna be groundbreaking if you're a bit familiar with Italian authors, just because they're the ones that have been translated basically and that you can find. So you might have come across some of them, but it's definitely, I thought it was still definitely worth for me mentioning it as books that I did enjoy growing up. And finally, the last one, and probably the only one I read when I was already in England and that I absolutely love, is another literature fiction, and that's the Quartet of My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. This is the story of these two girls and how they grew up in, I think it is a neighborhood in Naples, and how their background, their families shape and influence the way they then grow up, and how this friendship develops and how their lives develops, and still being linked over by this friendship. And it's just a kind of family saga, but it's more like a friendship saga of these two women. And so every book you follow them. First book there are children, in the second one they are teens, in the fourth one they're adult, and I think in the last one they are like late adulthood. when they become a bit like around 6 years old, something of the sort. So I've read the first 3, absolutely love them. The writing is stellar, and I heard so many great things about people that have read this in English, and I guess so that the translation stands up to standard in Italian. I'm reading them in Italian and will continue on just because it's nice for me sometimes to get some book in my original language. It's also way faster for me to read them in my original language. But love them, absolutely love them. I think this woman creates this story that feels so real, and I actually had to look up because I thought this was semi-biographical, and instead it's actually not. It has nothing to do with the author's life, and it's amazing because it feels so damn real. That made me love the writing and the author, like her talent, even more. That was it. If you read any of those, do let me know what you thought in the comments down below. If you end up picking up some of those, do come back in the comments and let me know what you thought about them. And also, if you want to recommend like some staple literature from your country, I'd love to hear about it. I also am the host of a book club for my company, so I'm always looking for new authors, and I'm trying to be as diverse as possible and including authors from all over the world. So your recommendations definitely welcomed, and I wish you a good day, night, depending on where you are, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.